Welcome back, dear listener. In the first part of this illustration on history of Germany, we covered from prehistoric era till the year 1254, the Hohenstaufen Dynasty and Frederick Barbarossa. In this part of the illustration, we will cover from the year 1254 till the rise of the Third Reich. Chapter 10, The Great Interregnum and the Golden Bull, 1254 to 1400. The period from 1254 to 1273 is known as the Great Interregnum, a time without a recognized emperor. Multiple claimants fought for the crown. The princes used the chaos to expand their own power, seizing royal lands and rights. Robber barons built castles along trade routes and extorted tolls from merchants. Lawlessness spread. In 1273, the princes finally elected Rudolf of Habsburg as king. The Habsburgs were a relatively minor noble family from Switzerland, but Rudolf, born in 1218 CE, proved capable. He never achieved the imperial coronation but restored some order to Germany. He defeated Ottokar II of Bohemia and seized his lands, establishing Habsburg power in Austria. When Rudolf died in 1291, the Habsburgs had become one of Germany's great families. The princes, however, were determined to prevent any family from making the kingship hereditary. They elected a series of weak kings from different families. Power fragmented further. Germany became a patchwork of principalities, duchies, counties, bishoprics, and free cities, each jealous of its independence. In 1356, Emperor Charles IV issued the Golden Bull, a constitutional document that would govern the Holy Roman Empire until its end. It formalized the process of imperial election. 7 prince-electors, the archbishops of Mainz, Cologne, and Trier, the King of Bohemia, the Count Palatine of the Rhine, the Duke of Saxony, and the Margrave of Brandenburg, had the exclusive right to choose the emperor. The Golden Bull granted these electors near-sovereign powers in their territories. For the common people, political fragmentation had mixed effects. On one hand, weak central authority meant more local wars and banditry. On the other hand, it also meant more local autonomy and less oppressive taxation from distant rulers. The 14th century was a time of crisis. In the year 1315, the Great Famine struck. Years of cold, wet weather destroyed crops across northern Europe. People starved by the thousands. Desperate peasants ate bark, grass, even each other in extreme cases. The famine lasted until 1322, weakening the population. Then came the Black Death. In 1347, plague arrived in Europe from the east, carried by fleas on rats aboard trading ships. By 1351, it had killed perhaps a third of Europe's population, possibly more. German cities and towns were devastated. Entire villages were abandoned. The dead were buried in mass graves or left to rot where they fell. The plague had profound social effects. With so many dead, labor became scarce. Surviving peasants could demand better conditions. Some serfs gained freedom. Wages rose. The rigid hierarchies of feudal society began to crack. But the plague also brought darkness. Desperate people sought scapegoats. Jewish communities were accused of poisoning wells. Pogroms swept through Germany. In cities like Strasbourg, Mainz, and Cologne, entire Jewish quarters were burned, thousands murdered. This ugly stain on German history would not be the last. Despite the crises, towns continued to grow. German cities joined trading leagues. The Hanseatic League, centered on Lübeck, Hamburg, and Bremen, dominated Baltic trade, establishing trading posts from London to Novgorod. Merchants grew wealthy. Guild halls and town halls were built in the late Gothic style, showing civic pride. The German bourgeoisie, the urban middle class, was emerging. Master craftsmen, merchants, and bankers accumulated wealth and demanded political power. Town councils, dominated by patrician families, governed with increasing independence from feudal lords. Education advanced significantly. The first German universities were founded, Prague in 1348 CE, Vienna in 1365, Heidelberg in 1386, Cologne in 1388. These institutions taught theology, law, medicine, and the liberal arts. They operated in Latin and followed the scholastic method, emphasizing logic and disputation. Gothic architecture reached its height. Cathedrals soared to dizzying heights. Stained glass windows told biblical stories to an illiterate populace. Sculptors created increasingly realistic figures. Painting advanced with the development of oil techniques and greater attention to perspective and detail. Literature flourished. German was increasingly used alongside Latin. Mystical writers like Meister Eckhart and Henry Suso explored the inner spiritual life. Chronicles recorded city histories. The printing press, invented by Johannes Gutenberg around 1440, would soon revolutionize the spread of knowledge.
Chapter 11. The Late Middle Ages, Rise of the Habsburgs, 1400 to 1517. The 15th century saw the House of Habsburg emerge as the dominant force in the Holy Roman Empire. Though the imperial title remained elective, the Habsburgs were chosen repeatedly, and through strategic marriages, they accumulated vast territories. Emperor Maximilian I, born in 1459, ruled from 1493 to 1519. He styled himself the Last Knight, embracing the chivalric ideals of a fading age. But he was also a modernizer, reforming the imperial administration and army. Through his marriage to Mary of Burgundy, he gained the wealthy Netherlands. He arranged the marriage of his son Philip to Joanna of Castile, setting the stage for his grandson Charles to inherit Spain and its New World Empire. Life for the common people was improving in some ways, deteriorating in others. The population, devastated by plague, was recovering. New lands were cultivated. Towns grew. Trade expanded. But tensions were rising. Peasants resented increasing demands from lords who sought to reimpose serfdom after the labor shortages of the plague years. The gap between rich and poor widened. Wealthy merchants and princes lived in luxury while peasants struggled. Agriculture saw innovations. The cultivation of new crops like hops for beer and flax for linen expanded. Orchards and vineyards spread. Animal husbandry improved with selective breeding. But peasants still lived on the edge of subsistence. A bad harvest meant hunger. A series of bad harvests meant death. Diet varied by class. The wealthy ate meat regularly, white bread, pastries, and spiced dishes. They drank wine and imported luxuries. Peasants still subsisted mainly on dark bread, porridge, vegetables, and beer. Meat was a luxury, perhaps a hen on Easter or pork at Christmas. The church remained central to life. The calendar revolved around religious festivals. Pilgrimages to holy sites were popular. Saints' days provided breaks from labor. But the church was also showing signs of corruption. The sale of indulgences, promises of reduced time in purgatory in exchange for money, became increasingly blatant. Clergy accumulated wealth while preaching poverty. Resentment grew. The invention of the printing press around 1440 by Johannes Gutenberg in Mainz was revolutionary. His Gutenberg Bible, completed around 1455, demonstrated the power of movable type. Books, previously rare and expensive, could now be produced quickly and cheaply. Knowledge spread. Literacy increased. Ideas that once took decades to disseminate could now spread in months. The Renaissance, beginning in Italy, was reaching Germany. Humanist scholars studied classical Greek and Roman texts. They emphasized rhetoric, ethics, and the study of humanity rather than purely theological concerns. German humanists like Erasmus of Rotterdam criticized church corruption and called for reform. Art was transformed. Albrecht Dürer, born in 1471 in Nuremberg, became one of the greatest artists of his age. His engravings and paintings combined technical mastery with deep emotion. He traveled to Italy, learned perspective and proportion, and brought Renaissance techniques to Germany. Mining and metallurgy advanced. Germany was rich in silver, copper, and iron. Mining towns in Saxony, Bohemia, and the Alps boomed. The Fugger family of Augsburg became Europe's wealthiest bankers, financing emperors and popes. Their wealth rivaled that of nations. But beneath the surface prosperity, spiritual crisis was brewing. Many felt the church had lost its way. The sale of indulgences seemed to make salvation a commodity. The clergy were often corrupt or ignorant. People hungered for a more direct, authentic faith. In 1517, that hunger would explode into revolution. If you are enjoying this video, please like and subscribe so that we can continue making more contents like this. Thank you.
Chapter 12, The Reformation, Martin Luther, 1517 to 1555. On October 31st, 1517, a monk and theology professor named Martin Luther nailed a document to the door of the castle church in Wittenberg. The 95 Theses challenged the sale of indulgences and questioned papal authority. Luther intended an academic debate. He sparked a religious revolution. Martin Luther was born in 1483 in Eilben, Saxony, to a mining family of modest means. His father wanted him to become a lawyer, but in 1505, caught in a thunderstorm and fearing death, Luther vowed to become a monk. He entered an Augustinian monastery, was ordained a priest, and eventually became a professor of theology at the University of Wittenberg. Luther was tormented by spiritual anxiety. He could not feel certain of his salvation despite prayers, fasts, and penances. Then, while studying Paul's letter to the Romans, he had an epiphany. Salvation came not through good works, but through faith alone, sola fide. God's grace was a gift, not something earned. This insight freed him and became the cornerstone of Protestant theology. The publication of the 95 Theses made Luther famous overnight. Thanks to the printing press, copies spread across Germany within weeks. Many Germans, already resentful of church corruption and the flow of German wealth to Rome, embraced Luther's message. The church responded with threats. Luther was summoned to recant. In 1521, at the Diet of Worms, an imperial assembly, Luther stood before Emperor Charles V and refused to recant unless convinced by Scripture. "Here I stand, I can do no other," he supposedly said. Charles declared him an outlaw. Luther's prince, Frederick the Wise of Saxony, hid him in Wartburg Castle for his protection. During his months in hiding, Luther translated the New Testament into German. For the first time, ordinary Germans could read the Bible in their own language. It was a revolutionary act. Luther's translation shaped the German language itself, establishing a standard that would unite the various dialects. The Reformation spread rapidly. Princes and city councils saw an opportunity to break free from papal authority and seize church lands. The religious message mixed with political and economic grievances. Northern Germany and Scandinavia went Protestant. Southern Germany, Austria, and the Rhineland remained largely Catholic. For the common people, the Reformation brought both hope and turmoil. Luther's message of spiritual equality resonated with peasants who felt oppressed by both church and nobility. In 1524, the German Peasants' War erupted. Tens of thousands of peasants rose in rebellion, demanding the abolition of serfdom, reduction of rents and tithes, and the right to elect their own pastors. Luther initially sympathized but grew alarmed as the revolt turned violent. He wrote a pamphlet urging princes to crush the rebellion. The princes obliged. By 1525, the revolt was drowned in blood. Perhaps 100,000 peasants died. The dream of social revolution was crushed, though the Reformation continued. Luther married Katharina of Bora, a former nun, in 1525. They had 6 children. Luther's household became a model for Protestant clergy who could now marry. The family, rather than the monastery, became the center of religious life. Life changed for those who became Protestant. Monasteries were dissolved, their lands seized. Monks and nuns were released from vows. Religious holidays were reduced. Church services were simplified, conducted in German rather than Latin, with sermons explaining Scripture. Congregational singing, hymns written by Luther and others, became central to worship. Education expanded. Luther believed everyone should read the Bible, so schools multiplied. Towns established Latin schools for boys. Catechism, a summary of Christian doctrine, was taught to children. Literacy rates began to climb, though they remained low by modern standards. The Catholic Church responded with the Counter-Reformation. The Council of Trent, meeting between 1545 and 1563, clarified Catholic doctrine and addressed some abuses. New religious orders like the Jesuits were founded to combat Protestantism through education and missionary work. Germany was divided. Protestant and Catholic territories eyed each other with suspicion. Religious wars seemed inevitable. In 1555, the Peace of Augsburg established the principle of cuius regio, ius religio, whose realm is religion. Each prince could choose whether his territory would be Catholic or Lutheran. Subjects who disagreed could emigrate. It was a compromise, but an unstable one. Luther died in 1546 in Eilben, the town of his birth. He left behind a divided Christendom and a transformed Germany.
Chapter 13. Religious Wars and the 30 Years' War, 1555 to 1648. The Peace of Augsburg brought a fragile stability, but religious tensions continued to simmer. The next century saw Germany torn apart by the most devastating conflict in its history until the 20th century. The 30 Years' War. The Holy Roman Empire in this period was a complex mosaic. There were hundreds of political entities, principalities, duchies, bishoprics, free cities, each jealous of its privileges. The emperor had little real power. The imperial assembly, the Reichstag, met irregularly and accomplished little. Germany was united in name only. Life for common people varied greatly depending on where they lived and whether their lord was Protestant or Catholic. In Protestant areas, former monasteries were converted into schools or hospitals. In Catholic areas, the Counter-Reformation brought renewed emphasis on ritual, saints, and papal authority. Agriculture remained the basis of the economy. Most Germans were still peasants tied to the land. They lived in timber-framed houses, planted in spring, harvested in fall, and paid dues to their lord. The three-field system continued, but innovations were slow. Conservative farming methods persisted for generations. Towns were prospering in some regions. The Hanseatic League was in decline, but cities like Augsburg, Nuremberg, and Frankfurt were thriving as banking and manufacturing centers. Craft guilds regulated production. Apprentices learned trades over years, became journeymen, and eventually, if they could afford it, master craftsmen. In 1618, the fragile peace shattered. The war began as a religious conflict when Protestant nobles in Bohemia rebelled against their Catholic Habsburg king, who became Emperor Ferdinand II. They threw his representatives out a window, an event known as the Defenestration of Prague. The rebels elected a Protestant king, Frederick V of the Palatinate. Ferdinand crushed the rebellion at the Battle of White Mountain in 1620. But the war spread. Protestant states, fearing Habsburg dominance, rallied. Catholic states supported the emperor. Denmark, then Sweden, then finally France, though Catholic, intervened to prevent Habsburg hegemony. The war became Europe-wide, fought largely on German soil. Armies marched back and forth, living off the land. Soldiers looted, raped, and murdered. Villages were burned. Fields lay uncultivated. Famine and disease followed the armies. The Swedish king Gustavus Adolphus intervened in 1630, winning brilliant victories before his death at the Battle of Lutzen in 1632. The war dragged on, degenerating into a meaningless bloodbath. Mercenary armies fought for whoever would pay them. Generals like Albrecht von Wallenstein commanded forces of tens of thousands, living like princes. For the common people, the 30 Years' War was apocalyptic. Germany's population, estimated at 16 to 20 million in 1618, may have fallen to 10 million by 1648. Some regions lost two-thirds of their population. Villages were abandoned. Wolves returned to depopulated areas. Contemporary accounts describe horrors beyond imagination. Peasants eating grass, leather, even corpses. Marauding soldiers torturing villagers to reveal hidden food and valuables. Epidemics of plague and typhus sweeping through malnourished populations. Women hiding in forests to escape rape. Children orphaned, wandering roads in packs. The war finally ended with the Peace of Westphalia in 1648. The treaty recognized the independence of Switzerland and the Netherlands from the empire. It extended religious tolerance to Calvinists as well as Lutherans and Catholics. It confirmed the prince's sovereignty, making Germany's fragmentation permanent. The Holy Roman Empire continued in name, but it was a hollow shell. Germany was devastated. It would take generations to recover. The economic and cultural center of Europe shifted west, to France, England, and the Netherlands. Germany became a backwater, a land of petty princes and ruined towns.
Chapter 14, Recovery and Enlightenment, the Rise of Prussia 1648 to 1789. From the ashes of the 30 Years' War, Germany slowly recovered. Population grew. Fields were replanted. Towns rebuilt. But the political fragmentation remained. Hundreds of principalities, each with its own laws, currency, and tolls, hindered trade and development. One state, however, was rising, Brandenburg Prussia. The Hohenzollern electors of Brandenburg, ruling from Berlin, were determined, efficient, and ruthless. In 1618, they inherited Prussia, a duchy on the Baltic. Over the next century, through war, diplomacy, and administration, they built a powerful state. Frederick William, the Great Elector, ruled Brandenburg Prussia from 1640 to 1688. He built an efficient army, promoted commerce, and welcomed religious refugees, including French Huguenots and Jews who brought skills and capital. He established absolutist rule, crushing the power of local estates. His grandson, Frederick William I, ruled from 1713 to 1740. He was obsessed with the army, expanding it to 80,000 men in a kingdom of 2.5 million. He imposed rigid discipline, dressing even civilians in uniform-like clothing. He was frugal to the point of miserliness, building up a treasury and an efficient bureaucracy. His greatest pride was his regiment of giant grenadiers, the Potsdam Giants, soldiers over 6 feet tall whom he recruited or kidnapped from across Europe. His son, Frederick II, known as Frederick the Great, ruled from 1740 to 1786 and transformed Prussia into a great power. Born in 1712, Frederick was a complex figure, a warrior, a philosopher, a patron of the arts, and a ruthless pragmatist. In his youth, Frederick clashed with his authoritarian father. He loved music, poetry, and French culture. When he attempted to flee Prussia, his father had him arrested and forced him to watch the execution of his best friend. The experience hardened him. As king, Frederick proved a military genius. He seized Silesia from Austria in 1740, starting the War of Austrian Succession. When Austria sought revenge, he fought the 7 Years' War from 1756 to 1763 against a coalition of Austria, France, Russia, and Sweden. Through brilliant tactics and sheer determination, Prussia survived. Frederick fought personally in battle, had horses shot from under him, and once carried a vial of poison to avoid capture. Frederick was also an enlightened despot. He abolished torture, promoted religious tolerance, codified laws, and encouraged economic development. He drained swamps, settled immigrants, and promoted agriculture. He played the flute, composed music, and corresponded with Voltaire, whom he invited to his court at Sanssouci Palace. For the common people, Frederick's reign brought both benefits and burdens. His wars required constant military service. Prussian discipline was harsh, but there was also order, justice, and some prosperity. Serfs were still bound to the land, but Frederick recognized that a healthy, educated population served the state better than a brutalized one. Elsewhere in Germany, the Enlightenment was flowering. German philosophy, literature, and music reached new heights. Immanuel Kant, born in 1724 in Königsberg, revolutionized philosophy with his critique of pure reason, exploring the limits of human knowledge and the foundations of morality. German literature blossomed. Gotthold Ephraim Lessing wrote plays exploring tolerance and reason. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, born in 1749 in Frankfurt, became Germany's greatest writer. His novel The Sorrows of Young Werther made him famous across Europe. His later works, including the poetic drama Faust, explored the human condition with unmatched depth. Music thrived. Johann Sebastian Bach, born in 1685, composed works of sublime complexity and beauty. George Friedrich Handel, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and later Ludwig van Beethoven made German-speaking lands the center of European music. Universities expanded. German became a language of scholarship alongside Latin. Science advanced. The astronomer Johannes Kepler had earlier discovered the laws of planetary motion. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz developed calculus independently of Newton and invented the binary system. Life for ordinary Germans was improving slowly. Towns grew. The merchant and artisan classes expanded. Coffee houses became centers of discussion and debate. Newspapers appeared, spreading news and ideas. But Germany remained fragmented and vulnerable. In 1789, revolution erupted in France. The shockwaves would soon reach Germany.
Chapter 15, Napoleon and German Nationalism, 1789 to 1815. The French Revolution terrified Europe's monarchs. When France declared war on Austria in 1792, German states rushed to defend the old order. They were crushed. French revolutionary armies, motivated by ideology and led by talented generals, swept across the Rhine. Then came Napoleon Bonaparte. Born in 1769 on Corsica, he rose through the French military to become first consul and then emperor. Between 1805 and 1807, he destroyed the armies of Austria, Prussia, and Russia in a series of brilliant campaigns. At Austerlitz in 1805, Napoleon annihilated a combined Austro-Russian army. At Jena and Auerstadt in 1806, he crushed Prussia. The supposedly invincible Prussian army collapsed in a single day. Napoleon marched through Berlin. The Holy Roman Empire, already a fiction, was formally dissolved in 1806 after nearly 1,000 years. Napoleon reorganized Germany. He created the Confederation of the Rhine, a grouping of German states under French protection. He imposed the Napoleonic Code, which guaranteed equality before the law, abolished feudal privileges, and promoted meritocracy. He dissolved hundreds of tiny principalities, secularized church lands, and freed serfs in some areas. For ordinary Germans, French rule brought mixed blessings. legal equality, and the abolition of feudal dues were welcome. But French occupation was harsh. Heavy taxes, conscription into French armies, and the continental system, which banned trade with Britain, caused hardship. Culturally, the French occupation sparked German nationalism. For centuries, Germans had identified with their locality or state. Now, intellectuals began speaking of a German nation, a people united by language, culture, and history. Philosophers like Johann Gottlieb Fichte delivered passionate speeches, calling for German unity. The poet Ernst Moritz Arndt wrote patriotic verses. The brothers Grimm collected German fairy tales, preserving folk culture. In Prussia, defeat prompted radical reforms. Baron von Stein and Count Hardenberg modernized the state, abolishing serfdom, opening military commissions to commoners, and establishing limited self-government in towns. The education reformer Wilhelm von Humboldt founded the University of Berlin, emphasizing research and academic freedom, a model that spread worldwide. In 1812, Napoleon invaded Russia with an army of 600,000, including many German troops. The campaign ended in disaster. Only a fraction returned. Sensing weakness, Prussia joined Russia in 1813. Austria followed. At the Battle of Leipzig in October 1813, the Battle of the Nations, the Allies defeated Napoleon. He was exiled to Elba. When Napoleon returned in 1815, the Allies united again. At Waterloo in June 1815, the Duke of Wellington and Prussian Field Marshal Blücher defeated him definitively. Napoleon was sent to remote St. Helena, where he died in 1821. The victors met at the Congress of Vienna to redraw the map of Europe. They sought to restore the old order, to turn back the clock to before 1789. Austria's Prince Metternich dominated the proceedings. Germany became the German Confederation, a loose association of 39 states under Austrian presidency. It was a disappointment to nationalists who hoped for a unified Germany.
Chapter 16. Restoration and Revolution, 1815 to 1871. The period after 1815 is called the Restoration. Monarchs returned, constitutions were revoked, and reactionary policies prevailed. Metternich's system suppressed liberalism and nationalism through censorship, police surveillance, and the Carlsbad Decrees, which controlled universities and the press. But change could not be stopped. The Industrial Revolution, beginning in Britain, spread to Germany. Factories appeared, first in the Rhineland and Saxony. Coal mining expanded in the Ruhr Valley. Railroads, the first opening in 1835 between Nuremberg and Fürth, revolutionized transport. By 1850, Germany had thousands of miles of track. Industrialization transformed German society. Peasants left the land for factory work. Cities swelled. A new working class emerged, laboring long hours in dangerous conditions for low wages. Child labor was common. Housing was crowded and unsanitary. Yet factories also created wealth and opportunity. The middle class, the burgherdom, grew in size and confidence. Merchants, bankers, lawyers, doctors, and engineers prospered. They read newspapers, attended concerts, joined clubs, and discussed politics in cafes. They demanded political rights commensurate with their economic power. Education expanded dramatically. Primary schooling became widespread. German states led Europe in literacy. Universities flourished. German scholarship, especially in philosophy, philology, and science, achieved world renown. German culture was vibrant. This was the age of Romanticism, emphasizing emotion, nature, and individual genius. Composers like Franz Schubert, Robert Schumann, Johannes Brahms, and Richard Wagner created masterpieces. Wagner's operas, based on Germanic mythology, became symbols of German identity. Literature thrived. Heinrich Heine wrote lyric poetry and biting satire. George Büchner's plays explored social injustice. Later, Theodor Fontane depicted the tensions in Prussian society. But political frustration was building. In 1848, revolutions swept across Europe. In March, uprisings erupted in Berlin, Vienna, and other German cities. King Frederick William IV of Prussia was forced to grant a constitution. In Frankfurt, an elected assembly met in St. Paul's Church to draft a constitution for a unified Germany. The Frankfurt Parliament debated for months. Should Germany be Großdeutsch, including Austria, or Kleindeutsch, excluding Austria? Should it be a monarchy or a republic? Eventually, they offered the imperial crown to Frederick William IV. He refused, disdaining a crown offered by commoners. The revolution failed. By 1849, conservative forces had regained control. The Frankfurt Parliament was dispersed. Constitutions were revoked or made meaningless. Thousands fled into exile. But the dream of German unity survived. The question remained, how would Germany unite? Through liberalism and parliament, or through Prussian power and blood and iron?
Chapter 17. Unification, Otto von Bismarck, 1862 to 1871. The answer came in the person of Otto von Bismarck. Born in 1815 into a Junker family, the Prussian landowning nobility, Bismarck was brilliant, ruthless, and utterly devoted to Prussian power. In 1862, King William I appointed him Minister-President of Prussia. Bismarck's famous declaration to the Prussian parliament set the tone. The great questions of the day will not be decided by speeches and majority decisions, but by blood and iron. He meant it. Bismarck's first move was against Denmark in 1864 over the duchies of Schleswig and Holstein. Prussia and Austria defeated Denmark easily. But then Bismarck picked a quarrel with Austria over the spoils. In 1866, the Austro-Prussian War, or 7 Weeks' War, demonstrated Prussian military superiority. At the Battle of Königgrätz, the Prussians, equipped with breech-loading rifles and superior tactics, crushed the Austrians. Austria was excluded from German affairs. Prussia annexed several German states and formed the North German Confederation under Prussian leadership. Bismarck had achieved Kleindeutsch unification of northern Germany, but the southern German states, Bavaria, Baden, and Württemberg, remained independent, allied with Austria and wary of Prussia. Bismarck needed another war to bring them in. France, under Emperor Napoleon III, was alarmed by Prussian expansion. When a Prussian prince was offered the Spanish throne, France demanded Prussia withdraw. Bismarck edited a telegram to make it seem both sides had insulted each other. France declared war in July 1870. It was a disaster for France. The Prussian military, with its general staff system, rapid mobilization, and superior artillery, overwhelmed the French. At Sedan in September 1870, Napoleon III and an entire French army surrendered. Paris was besieged and fell in January 1871. The southern German states, seeing Prussian power and fearing French aggression, joined the North German Confederation. On January 18, 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, the German Empire was proclaimed. King William I of Prussia became German Emperor. Bismarck became Chancellor. Germany was finally united, not through liberal ideals, but through Prussian militarism and Bismarck's realpolitik. The new empire was a federation of 25 states, dominated by Prussia. It had a parliament, the Reichstag, elected by universal male suffrage, but real power lay with the Kaiser and his chancellor. For ordinary Germans, unification brought pride and prosperity. Germany industrialized rapidly. Steel production soared. Chemical and electrical industries emerged. German goods flooded world markets. Cities grew explosively. Berlin's population increased from 800,000 in 1871 to over 2 million by 1900. Workers organized. The Social Democratic Party, founded in the 1860s, became the world's largest socialist party, advocating for workers' rights and social reform. Bismarck responded with both repression and innovation. He banned the Social Democrats, but he also introduced the world's first comprehensive social insurance system. Health insurance in 1883, accident insurance in 1884, and old age pensions in 1889. Education became compulsory. Germany achieved near-universal literacy. Universities led the world in science and scholarship. German scientists and engineers made groundbreaking discoveries in chemistry, physics, medicine, and engineering. German culture flourished. This was the age of Richard Wagner, Friedrich Nietzsche, and, at its end, Sigmund Freud. German philosophy, literature, and music shaped European thought. But there were dark currents. German nationalism became increasingly chauvinistic. A cult of militarism pervaded society. Anti-Semitism grew, with Jews blamed for social problems. The empire was authoritarian, with limited democracy and a powerful military caste. Bismarck dominated European diplomacy for 2 decades, maintaining peace through a complex system of alliances. But in 1890, the new Kaiser, William II, dismissed him. William was ambitious, insecure, and impulsive. He abandoned Bismarck's careful diplomacy and sought Germany's place in the sun.
Chapter 18, The Road to War, Wilhelmine Germany, 1890 to 1914. Kaiser William II, born in 1859, ascended to the throne in 1888. He was intelligent, energetic, and deeply flawed. Born with a withered left arm, he overcompensated with aggressive posturing. He dreamed of making Germany a world power equal to Britain. Wilhelmine Germany was a society of contradictions. Economically and scientifically advanced, it was politically backward. The Reichstag had limited power. The military answered only to the Kaiser. The Junker aristocracy dominated the officer corps and civil service. Yet below the surface, modern, pluralistic forces were stirring. The economy boomed. By 1900, Germany had surpassed Britain in steel production. The chemical industry, led by companies like Bayer and BASF, was the world's most advanced. German engineering, precision instruments, and electrical goods were renowned globally. Companies like Siemens and AEG pioneered electrical technology. Cities grew and modernized. Electricity, telephones, and automobiles appeared. Department stores offered consumer goods to the growing middle class. Cafes and cabarets provided entertainment. Berlin became a vibrant cultural center, rivaling Paris and Vienna. For workers, conditions improved slowly. Wages rose. Hours decreased slightly. Trade unions grew stronger despite legal restrictions. Social democracy, though persecuted, won increasing votes. By 1912, the SPD was the largest party in the Reichstag. German culture reached extraordinary heights. This was the era of Thomas Mann, whose novel Buddenbrooks explored the decline of a merchant family. Rainer Maria Rilke wrote lyric poetry of intense beauty. Gustav Mahler composed symphonies of vast scope. Expressionist painters like Ernst Ludwig Kirchner depicted modern alienation. But beneath the prosperity, tension simmered. Rapid industrialization created social dislocation. Traditional values clashed with modernity. Nationalism became increasingly aggressive and racial. Anti-Semitism was widespread, though Jews were prominent in business, science, and culture. William II pursued world politics, building a powerful navy to challenge British supremacy. This alarmed Britain and drove it closer to France and Russia. The alliance system hardened into two hostile blocs, the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy versus the Triple Entente of France, Russia, and Britain. Germany's leadership became paranoid, convinced that enemies encircled them. Military planning assumed a two-front war. The Schlieffen Plan called for a rapid knockout blow against France through neutral Belgium, then turning to fight Russia. In June 1914, a Serbian nationalist assassinated Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. Austria demanded harsh terms from Serbia. Russia mobilized to support Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia, then on France. When German armies invaded Belgium, Britain declared war on Germany. The lamps were going out all over Europe. Chapter 19, The Great War and Collapse, 1914 to 1918. World War I began with enthusiasm. Germans believed it would be a short, glorious war. Soldiers marched off singing, convinced they'd be home by Christmas. Crowds cheered in Berlin. Even the Social Democrats voted for war credits. The Schlieffen Plan failed. France was not knocked out. The German advance stalled at the Marne. By late 1914, the Western Front had become a line of trenches stretching from the North Sea to Switzerland. For 4 years, millions of men faced each other across the mud, fighting for yards of ground. For German soldiers, the war was hell. They crouched in trenches, under constant artillery bombardment. Machine guns made attacks suicidal. Poison gas, first used by Germany at Ypres in 1915, added a new horror. Battles like Verdun and the Somme in 1916 killed hundreds of thousands for no gain. At sea, the German Navy challenged Britain. The Battle of Jutland in 1916 was inconclusive. Germany turned to unrestricted submarine warfare, sinking merchant ships without warning. This would bring America into the war. On the home front, life became increasingly grim. Britain's naval blockade cut off food and raw materials. Rationing was introduced. The winter of 1916-17, the turnip winter, saw near starvation. People ate bread made from sawdust and potatoes. Thousands died of malnutrition and disease. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, taking jobs in factories, transportation, and offices. Social roles were transforming. The old order was cracking. In 1917, revolution erupted in Russia. The Tsar was overthrown, and Russia descended into chaos. Germany saw an opportunity. They transported Lenin in a sealed train to Russia, hoping he would take Russia out of the war. He did. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in March 1918 gave Germany vast territories in the east. With Russia defeated, Germany launched a massive offensive in the west in spring 1918. Initially successful, it ultimately failed. German armies were exhausted, outnumbered, and facing fresh American troops. The Allies counterattacked. By autumn 1918, Germany's allies were collapsing. Bulgaria, Ottoman Turkey, and Austria-Hungary sued for peace. The German army was retreating. The navy mutinied. Revolution broke out in German cities. On November 9, 1918, Kaiser William II abdicated and fled to Holland. A republic was proclaimed. 2 days later, on November 11, 1918, Germany signed an armistice. The guns fell silent. Germany had lost over 2 million dead, millions more wounded. The empire was gone. The economy was shattered. Starvation and disease continued, and worse was to come.
Chapter 20, Revolution in Weimar, 1918 to 1923. Germany in November 1918 was in chaos. Soldiers were deserting. Workers' and soldiers' councils, modeled on Russian Soviets, sprang up in cities. Revolutionaries proclaimed a socialist republic. The old order had collapsed. A moderate socialist, Friedrich Ebert, became chancellor of the provisional government. He faced an impossible situation. The left wanted socialist revolution. The right wanted restoration of the monarchy. The Allies demanded harsh peace terms. The economy was in ruins. In January 1919, elections were held for a national assembly. The Social Democrats won the most seats. The assembly met in Weimar, a small city associated with Goethe and Schiller, away from the chaos of Berlin. They drafted a constitution creating the Weimar Republic, a democratic, federal state with proportional representation. But Germany was racked by violence. In January 1919, the Spartacist uprising, a communist revolt in Berlin, was crushed by right-wing Freikorps, paramilitary units of demobilized soldiers. The communist leaders Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht were murdered. In June 1919, German delegates were forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles. The terms were harsh. Germany lost all colonies and 13% of its European territory, including Alsace-Lorraine to France, West Prussia to Poland and other regions. The Rhineland was demilitarized. The army was limited to 100,000 men. Germany was forced to accept sole responsibility for the war, Article 231, the War Guilt Clause. Most controversially, Germany was required to pay reparations, though the exact sum wasn't set until 1921. 132 billion gold marks, an astronomical figure. The treaty also demanded the surrender of the Kaiser and other leaders for trial as war criminals. Germans were outraged. They felt betrayed. The military had told civilians they were winning. The sudden collapse seemed inexplicable. Right-wing nationalists promoted the Dalkstoßlegende, the stab-in-the-back legend, claiming Germany hadn't lost militarily but been betrayed by socialists and Jews at home. The Weimar Republic was born into a poisoned atmosphere. It was blamed for the Treaty of Versailles, though it had no choice but to sign. Democracy was associated with defeat and humiliation. The economy collapsed. War debts were enormous. Reparations payments drained resources. In 1923, when Germany defaulted, French and Belgian troops occupied the Ruhr, Germany's industrial heartland, to seize payment in kind. The government called for passive resistance. Production stopped. The government printed money to pay striking workers and its own expenses. Hyperinflation spiraled out of control. Prices doubled every few days. People carried money in wheelbarrows to buy bread. Savings became worthless overnight. The middle class, which had invested in government bonds, was wiped out. A loaf of bread cost billions of marks. The psychological impact was devastating. People who had worked and saved all their lives lost everything. Trust in government and currency evaporated. The experience left deep scars and made Germans susceptible to extremism. In November 1923, a little-known agitator named Adolf Hitler attempted a coup in Munich, the beer hall putsch. It failed. Hitler was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison, though he served less than 1. In prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, outlining his ideology of racial nationalism, anti-Semitism, and Lebensraum, living space in the East.
Chapter 21, The Golden Years, 1924 to 1929. After the chaos of 1923, Germany stabilized. A new currency, the Rentenmark, ended hyperinflation. American loans under the Dawes Plan eased reparations payments. The economy recovered. These were the golden 20s in Germany, a period of prosperity and cultural brilliance. Industrial production surpassed pre-war levels. Wages rose. Unemployment fell. Germany rejoined the international community, joining the League of Nations in 1926. Berlin became the cultural capital of Europe, a city of extraordinary creativity and licentiousness. Cabarets flourished, offering risque entertainment. Jazz clubs throbbed with American rhythms. Expressionist cinema produced masterpieces like Fritz Lang's Metropolis and F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill created the Threepenny Opera. German science and scholarship led the world. Albert Einstein had revolutionized physics with relativity. German scientists won numerous Nobel Prizes. The Bauhaus School of Design, founded by Walter Gropius, pioneered modernist architecture and industrial design. For ordinary Germans, life improved. Social welfare programs expanded. Housing was built for workers. Women gained new freedoms, cutting their hair short, smoking in public, and working in professions previously closed to them. But beneath the glitter, problems remained. Proportional representation meant no party won majorities. Governments were unstable coalitions, often lasting only months. Political violence continued. Right-wing paramilitary groups and communist militias clashed in the streets. The Nazi Party, reduced to insignificance after the failed putsch, rebuilt under Hitler's leadership. It remained marginal, winning only 2.6% of the vote in 1928. Hitler focused on building a disciplined party organization and cultivating wealthy donors. Traditional elites, the Junkers, industrialists, and military officers, despised the Republic. They longed for a return to authoritarian rule. The judiciary was biased, treating right-wing violence leniently while punishing left-wing offenses harshly. The Catholic Church was hostile to the secular republic. Many intellectuals disdained democracy as weak and vulgar. Conservative professors taught students that liberalism and democracy were alien, un-German ideas. Yet Weimar culture was vibrant and free. Newspapers flourished. Political parties organized openly. Germans enjoyed more freedom than ever before. If the economy had continued to prosper, the Republic might have survived. Then came the catastrophe.
Chapter 22. The Great Depression and Nazi Rise, 1929 to 1933. In October 1929, the Wall Street stock market crashed. The American economy collapsed, taking the world with it. American banks recalled loans. International trade plummeted. Germany, dependent on American credit, was devastated. By 1932, German industrial production had fallen by nearly half. 6 million were unemployed, 30% of the workforce. Young men, unable to find work, lost hope. Middle-class families slipped into poverty. Farmers faced collapsing prices. The government's response was disastrous. Chancellor Heinrich Brüning imposed austerity, cutting spending and raising taxes to balance the budget. This deepened the depression. People suffered while politicians seemed helpless. Political extremism surged. The Nazi Party and the Communist Party both gained support, feeding off despair and promising radical solutions. Street battles between Nazi stormtroopers, the SA, and Communist Red Front fighters became routine. Democracy was collapsing into violent chaos. Adolf Hitler, born in 1889 in Austria, was a failed artist and World War I veteran. He was a mesmerizing speaker who channeled German resentment and humiliation into a toxic ideology. He blamed Jews, communists, and Democrats for Germany's problems. He promised to restore German greatness, tear up the Treaty of Versailles, and create a racially pure empire. In the 1930 elections, the Nazis won 18.3% of the vote, becoming the second-largest party. In July 1932, they won 37.3%, the largest party, though not a majority. Hitler demanded to be made chancellor. President Paul von Hindenburg, an aging war hero, initially refused, calling Hitler that Bohemian corporal. But conservative elites thought they could control Hitler. They believed they could use him to destroy the left, then discard him. On January 30, 1933, Hindenburg appointed Hitler chancellor. It was the gravest mistake in German history. Hitler moved quickly. In February 1933, the Reichstag building burned. Hitler blamed communists and demanded emergency powers. The Reichstag fire decree suspended civil liberties. Thousands of communists and socialists were arrested. In March 1933, elections were held under a campaign of intimidation. The Nazis won 43.9%. With the support of conservative parties, Hitler passed the Enabling Act, giving him dictatorial powers. Democracy in Germany was dead. Over the following months, Hitler consolidated power. Opposition parties were banned. Trade unions were dissolved. Books were burned. Jews were excluded from public life. Concentration camps were opened for political prisoners. The Gestapo, secret police, hunted down dissidents. Germany became a totalitarian state. The cult of the Führer, the leader, was promoted relentlessly. Nazi propaganda, brilliantly orchestrated by Joseph Goebbels, saturated society. Children were indoctrinated in the Hitler Youth. Neighbors informed on neighbors. For many Germans, the Nazi regime brought order after years of chaos. Unemployment fell as Hitler embarked on massive public works and rearmament. Pride was restored. Germany was strong again. The humiliation of Versailles seemed to be ending. But this order came at a terrible price. Freedom was gone. Dissent meant prison or death. Jews, Roma, homosexuals, and the disabled faced increasing persecution. Germany was on a path that would lead to unimaginable horror.
And so, dear listener, we reached the threshold. Germany in 1933 stood at a precipice, about to plunge into darkness. The nation that gave the world Goethe and Beethoven, Kant and Einstein, would soon unleash World War II. We have journeyed together from the misty forests where Germanic tribes worshipped in sacred groves, through the glories of Charlemagne's empire, the agonies of the 30 Years' War, the enlightenment of Frederick the Great, the unification under Bismarck, the horror of the Great War, and the chaos of Weimar. We have seen peasants tilling fields for centuries, their lives bound to the rhythms of seasons and harvests. We have seen merchants and craftsmen building towns and guilds. We have seen princes and emperors rising and falling. We have seen ideas and beliefs transforming societies. Germany's history is a tapestry woven with threads of brilliance and barbarism, culture and cruelty, achievement and atrocity. It is a story that reminds us that civilization is fragile, that democracy must be defended, and that the lessons of history must never be forgotten. But that darker chapter, the one that begins in 1933 and ends in 1945 with Germany in ruins and the world horrified, that story we will tell another night. If you have already subscribed to our channel, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you for keeping us motivated to continue to create these contents. If you have not subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Thank you. For now, close your eyes. Let the centuries we have traversed settle in your mind like sediment in a riverbed. Think of the countless lives lived and lost, the dreams pursued and shattered, the eternal human struggle to create meaning in a world that often seems indifferent. Sleep well, dear listener, and remember that history is not merely what happened to others long ago. It is the foundation on which we stand, the context that explains our present, and the warning that guides our future. Always remember, you are loved, you are blessed, you are a part of the divine. Until we meet again, good night.